Alright, hi everyone. So we're going to do another video on loops. And today we're going to be looking at what to do if you want to convert between for loops and while loops. Alright, once again, there are references in the Java 8 Fundamentals book. Specifically, Chapter 5 has some really good things on for and while statements or for and while loops. Alright, so to convert between for and while loops, to convert a while loop to a for loop, we want to leave the initialization and update parts for the for loop empty. All right, so when we take a look at a while loop, like something like this, it's the keyword while, and then there's two parentheses like this, and then there's something in here. This is the test condition for the while loop. Now, for a for loop, the test condition is right here in the middle between that semicolon and that semicolon right there. The space just before that semicolon is for the initialization of the counter, and then this space right here is for the updating of the counter. But if you leave them blank, then all that's going to happen is you're going to have this test condition that it's basically a question that gets asked every time you recycle and come back up to the top of the loop. So B is any valid Boolean expression. By Boolean expressions, we're talking about things like A less than C or greater than C, or Z not equal to 0, for instance. Those sort of expressions, okay? Now, however, when there is not a loop counter, okay, so normally we would have like I is equal to 1 here, and then over here you say something like I plus plus, right there. So if you don't have a loop counter, so I or count or index or whatever name for the integer, typically variable that you have in there, if you don't have one, it tends to make more sense to stick to the while loop, especially in the simplest cases. So if you're not going to be incrementing a counter, stick to the while loop. It's generally a better idea, but there could be reasons for why you'd want to do a conversion. All right, to convert from a for loop to a while loop, you want to move the initialization part immediately before the while loop, so above it, and place the update part at the end of the loop body, so inside the curly braces. Okay, so for instance, what you've got right here is a for loop. So it starts with the keyword for right here, and you say int I is equal to 0. So this is initialization and sort of starting up of your counter variable. So it's I, which is your counter variable, and it starts at 0. Then you've got some condition right here saying that I should be less than 10 or something. And then from there you've got I plus plus, which is the updating of the counter every time it runs through the loop. The equivalent would be to have your while loop. Okay, so that right there. So it starts with the curly brace here, ends with the curly brace right there. That initialization part of your counter, you just do it in the line above, or somewhere above the while loop. And then inside of it, this I plus plus, it's like this right here. That is the update. Okay, and B, whatever B is, okay, that's just whatever valid Boolean expression you want. It could be a bunch of ands together, it could be ands and ors together, it could be not equal to this and equal to that. It's some Boolean expression. Now, that said, if you're going to have a loop counter, typically it means that you are, you know ahead of time how many times it's going to run through, okay? And so typically that's when you would be using a for loop. Now, there are instances in which you would want to be able to break out of either the while loop or the for loop in ways that aren't dictated by that condition right there in the parentheses. And that's when we use something called a break. Okay? Now, a break, let's take a look at an example right here. Here's an example I got from another sort of tutorial page, careerkarma.com. So what we've got here is a class called guessing game, and inside a guessing game there's a main method right here, and the idea is that there's a secret number, in this case the secret number 6, and the user is supposed to guess what that is. So the user types in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, and if that's the case, it asks for the number again. As soon as the user gets 6, you want to exit the process. Now, the problem is that you also want to make sure that you don't keep asking the user over and over again forever if they're going to get the wrong number. So you want to give them a limited number of guesses. So that limited number of guesses, in this case, we're going to limit it to 5, is dictated by the for loop. But so you've got a condition where you're going to exit the for loop if we've had too many guesses. But there's another condition in which we want to say that's not dependent on the counter itself. Another condition in which we want to exit, and that's if the user gets the right guess or guesses the right number. So in that case, okay, and we've got the if statement here to determine whether or not the user has gotten the right guess. We tell the user, yeah, you're correct, but we also use the keyword break, and that will not break out of the if. The if will simply break as soon as basically get past the semicolon. So it's not that it worries about. This break is actually with respect to the for loop. And so I'll show you this working right here. Okay. So we're just going to run the code. So it's going to compile it one more time. So down here it says guess a number between 1 and 10. So I'm going to guess 2, 4, and then 6. Okay, so I'm going to say 2. I have to try again. 4. I have to guess again. Now I have a total of 5 guesses. Okay, but I'm going to guess 6 now. We know that's the secret number. This is going to exit out of the for loop now. It says you're correct, and then it says process finished with exit code 0. So basically we've exited the main method at this point. So when you're doing the conversion between whiles and fors, or if you have say a for loop that normally has a fixed number of cycles, but there's another type of reason for exiting, not just the number of cycles is expired, then you can use the keyword break. You should only use it sparingly, but that is one way to deal with it.